Here,
All right, so now we have Alekhine and Capablanca.
here Alekhine against Capablanca, also very instructive game because it's starting from the opening. White is a little bit better all the time. It's almost the same situation like in our previous game, from last year. We'll see.
Yes.
Capablanca with black has to try to equalize first, and then you see we have the game. Yeah. So everything is here. He took in d5. Well, the alternative was immediately bishop d7 instead of taking. It's also possible. But okay, now here bishop d7, knight c3, knight f6, castle, no?
Yes.
Bishop e7, knight f5. Well, this was a little bit, too risky. I mean, too risky. Too quick. It wasn't necessary to play like this. He could play everything here. He could play h3, rook e1, bishop g5, knight e2 back, and with the idea knight g3. White is always a little bit better. He controls the squares, he has more space, he's a little bit better. After knight f5, everything is more or less forced. I mean, you have to play something very quickly in the next moves. So, of course, black has to take immediately. Now he takes. And for a small moment, black has some small problems, but not very big, you see.
Like
So
the file is
after
open?
castle, now
Yes.
this is the move order is important. If he played like this, after the game, they analyzed and they said, okay, if white wanted something, he had to play something with g4 here. I mean, maybe not immediately, maybe, okay, he takes first in c6 and then g4. And it's okay, it's very unclear what happens because he wants to play very quickly. For instance, he could take in c6, takes, and g4. And now what to do? Now, if black waits a little bit for it, rook e8, for instance, after g5, knight d7, queen g4, white has something. White is better. I mean, clearly better, has attacking chances, you see.
Yeah.
But if you play like this and afterwards you don't decide to play g4 very quick, then the game is more or less, unclear. A little bit better for white, but
You lost the initiative, maybe, as
he
white.
didn't lose the initiative, but he wanted to play something else, another plan. It's a little bit too, he had to play very quickly here. If he played like this with knight f5.
Yeah.
He was not forced to play knight f5, but as long as he played knight f5, I mean, you have to continue like this, you see. Yeah, okay.
So rook
So
e1.
after castle, he changed the plan. Now he has time to put the knight in d7, trying to have a safe position. The idea is to come with the bishop in f6 and later on with the knight in b6. It happened in the game. So of course, knight
But knight in b6 for
no,
why?
he comes immediately with knight d5, you see.
Yeah.
So knight d5, and now, of course, bishop f6, no? Bishop f6. And now he continues c3, he takes the squares. And now knight b6, okay, move by move. Now, if you take in b6 is nothing. If he takes in f6, it seems that white is a little bit better. So he took there, he took in with the queen. Now he took in c6, queen f3. Well, it's something else. I mean, it's not the same idea, but white has the impression that he continues to be a little bit better, but in reality he has nothing here. So queen f3, rook e8, very good, he takes immediately the file. So bishop e3, and now very good move again, very logical, c5, okay. The idea for white was to come immediately with the bishop in d4, of course. It doesn't allow this. No? So, okay, after c5, rook e2, I mean, he realizes the fact that he doesn't have too much. The only idea was to come, to trade the rooks on the e file. So rook e2, rook e1. And now this is a very tricky move because he gives the pawn, but if black takes the pawn, it's very bad for black.
Why?
For instance, if he takes with the rook, no?
Yes.
After bishop g5, black resigns. He attacks the queen and he threatens mate in e8.
Oh, yes.
This is the idea. It was very tricky.
Yeah.
Of course, nobody would play like this, but their level,
Yes.
But he could take with the queen. If he takes with the queen, again, white has very good position. I mean, queen takes, no? Queen takes, rook takes, and bishop takes c5. Again, white is a little bit better. Again, made
I guess.
threat,
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so of course, Capablanca saw it and he played normal move, rook e8. And here he had to decide what to do, He could play very aggressively g4 or queen b7, like in their game, or play a little bit, more quiet and probably good enough to have an even game, bishop c1. It seems a little bit passive, but it's probably enough to have an even game, If he has time to trade twice on the e file, it's probably an even game, But okay, he tries to play very aggressively and he takes many risks, you see. So, okay, he threatens both pawns, c7 and a7.
Yeah.
It seems okay, but black now is better for black because black controls the file and he has the initiative. It's enough to come into play with the knight from b6 and black threatens something, and it's already dangerous for white. So he took the pawn, first in c7, of course. Now queen e6, triple, Now he took another pawn, no? He took another pawn, now he has time to come. Okay, he gave the pawn for the moment. The queen is out of play, is far away, in a7. And now all the black pieces are here, against
The
the
white
e
piece.
file and against the king.
Yeah.
And therefore, white is clearly worse in this position. He has to be very careful, So what to do? He realized the fact that, the situation is not very clear. And, okay, king f1. He played king f1.
King f1.
Yeah. Okay. And now after knight f4, everything is more or less forced. Probably black could even play better here. After the game, they saw it. After rook d2, no, knight f4 is okay. After rook d2, he took in g2. Very nice. He takes back the pawn later on, the piece later on with big initiative. But it was probably even better to play queen g4. After queen g4, white is probably already lost here.
Queen g4?
Yeah. Why? Because after queen g4, the situation is more or less forced. Now you have to play only f3 because after h3 is mate, After g3 is queen h3 mate.
Queen
After f3 is the only way to defend, the square g2. But now, very unpleasant, now the queen comes back to e6. Now you have to give the exchange. You have to take in f4 because otherwise you lose the piece.
To take in f4?
Why? It's forced, There's no move. I mean, if he doesn't play like this, he'll resigns immediately,
Yeah.
So he has to give the exchange. And now, of course, after rook takes f1 check, e1 check, pardon, king f2. And now, again, very, very strong move. Look like this. Rook f1 check. Now you have to come only to g3 because otherwise mate,
Yeah.
And now again, g5 with tempo, you see. g5. Now you have to take in g5, unfortunately for him. And now queen g6. And, after queen
Lights
g6, after queen g6, you have to play king h4, because if you play h4, you lose the bishop after h6.
Yeah.
Everything forced,
Yeah.
So, and here black wins by rook e5. Rook e5 and after e5.
E5,
yes. And after the only move, f4, he can take rook takes f4 and mate in h5. Rook takes f4 check. Yes, you have to take back and the rook h5 mate.
Yeah.
That was forced, They, they found it later on when they analyzed the game after the game, you see, after the game. Well, it was probably completely winning for black. But here, okay, he played the other move, which is also very nice and very strong. Knight takes g2, but it's not immediately like this, not mate or mate threat immediately. So everything forced again. So he took bishop check, queen takes g4, queen g4 check. Now again, and here he had to come back only there because he couldn't come to g1. If he comes to g1, it's mate again, I mean,
Like
if he comes to G1, rook G5 mate,
yeah, takes and
takes in E1 mate,
okay.
So so he has to come only to E2, and now he comes with check, first. So you have to take, queen takes, king D1 takes there, and here. Okay, now we have the position. Until now, everything goes okay. Now again, White had to come back to C1. If he came back to C1, maybe he had a small chance to save the game, you see. Also, clearly better for Black, but, maybe a small chance to save. He came in B3, which is very risky. Now, after king B3, the king is exposed.
Yeah.
After king B3, here again, Capablanca could play immediately C4 check and then queen C6. And the king is very unsafe, Okay, he played queen C6 first, and Alekhine played, like always, some very aggressive move, A4, which exposes even more the position, So finally, he will be mated in their
Mated.
games. I mean, he's trying to come with the pawn very far, to A6, but has no time because in meantime, Black has very strong attacking chances. So the position is already very bad for White. So because of the king is very weak.
Exposed.
So D5. All right. So lesson A5. Queen B5 check, and now the attack continues. You see, king A3. And now rook b8. Look, forced. Now we have to come back to a2, otherwise mate immediately in b3.
Yeah.
So here, h6 first, to be sure
Just
that
in
the
case.
king, nothing happens. Now again, the only move is a6 probably, nothing to play. So again, forced, check in b3, king b1.
He resigned here.
Well, king b1. Now it's clear why. King b1, rook e8, you say, rook e8. Now the only move is rook c2, otherwise it's mate immediately. Rook c2, check in e1, rook c1, rook e2, and mate. First. Lesson. But it was like, suicide a little bit from Alekhine because he played too much from a normal position. I mean, if he played quietly, probably the game would be maybe even, But like this, he tried too much. He gave too many chances, and against a player like Capablanca, it's very risky. Very risky.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Gheorghiu.
You are